Okay, Ahmed, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for
Yeah,
inviting me.
absolutely. So before we get into your background, we just started talking about the guitars before I hit the button to record. So I need to know what's the music of choice when you're strumming away?
Oh, it's so tricky. I always go back to old school. You think about the days of the 90s, right?
Yes, yes.
So in the 90s, there were a lot of Stereophonics and Oasis.
Yep.
These two bands were kind of prominent in my early guitar learning days, and I still play it. Like,
Really?
yeah, I still
So a
play
little
it.
Wonderwall and some other stuff, right?
All the tough, it just doesn't get old, but always is maybe less so. I think I like to play Stereophonics. It's a band in Wales.
Okay.
Play them more. I go see them live as well. I enjoy them. And yeah, it's just so nice to get chill out. But at the same time, I don't know about you, but I like to improvise. Just improvise and just play something.
Yeah, so you're
And then
clearly more
sometimes,
talented of a guitar player than I am. So for the folks who can't see the video, you can see in Ahmed's background, he's got his guitar. Mine's just over my shoulder. So I don't have the ear for music at all. I can't listen to a song and say, oh, that's E, A, and D, and here I go. But what I do have is my rhythm is really good. So if you tell me the chords within seconds, I can do the exact rhythm, the right up down stroke that I got to do. I can do all that, but I just don't have the ear for it. So I'm not that talented of a musician. So riffing on my own is not something I do. What I tend to do is I hear a song I'm just dying to play, I get on and see what the chords are, and off I go. And that leads me to another quick question on the topic before we get into the real stuff. But so what's the one song early in your guitar learning that you were just dying to figure out how to play that you finally learned how to play? What's that one song? Is there one?
I think it was "Sweet Child of Mine."
Really? By Guns N' Roses?
Yeah. That was
Super
the
cool.
solo bit, the intro bit, that
Oh,
bit,
of course.
it just, that one took me a long time to master it. And even on the acoustic guitar, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then eventually, yes.
Yes, I
So
got it.
happy. And now, again, this is another one of a song I like to play. Just that intro bit, it's just so beautiful to play on the
It is
acoustic.
beautiful. Yeah, I can hear it in my head now. So mine for everyone's sake is actually the Goo Goo Dolls. They had a song called "Name" that was really popular in the '90s, and for my entire life, I've wanted to figure out how to play it. And one of the challenges is John Resnick actually tunes his guitar really funky when he
Yes.
plays it. And in most instances, you can break your guitar neck if you don't do it right. So I have never tuned it that way, but I finally found a way to play it, and it sounds really close with the standard tuning. You just have to use a capo and some crazy chords. But that's
Totally.
that's mine. That's mine. So now that we have the fun stuff out of the way with the
Yeah.
guitars, I'm anxious. Thanks as always for coming on the show. I'm anxious to kind of your fellow CMA member. That's kind of the run I've been on lately of interviewing our Content Marketing Academy brothers and sisters. But so tell us a little bit about your background. Schooling. How did you get to where you are today?
It's so complicated, my history, because I live in the UK right now. I live in Edinburgh, Scotland, but I have moved around so much across the UK and abroad over the past 25 years. It's just
Really?
because of my education. I went to two universities, one for sports management and then my master's in marketing.
Huh.
And I wanted a career in sports marketing. That was
Really?
my goal. But then, after university, you're trying to find your way, you're trying to find your meanings. I got a job in a shop where they had like an eBay store and an Amazon marketplace. I was just managing that for them. And that was kind of the start of my online business experience and learning about e-commerce and learning about how people buy online, what they look for. These experience of just looking after an eBay store,
Right.
that was the very, very beginning for me of my career. And that was just over 10 years ago. That's what I started doing. Over time, I then, moved to, that was in Scotland. I moved to Berlin in Germany,
Really?
and I lived there for a year to do some online marketing. And that was on the back of the experience that I had. And, I did it for a publishing company, moved back to the UK in England in the South Coast, and I worked in an agency. I became an SEO, and it just happened. It wasn't like deliberately I wanted to be an SEO, but it just happened. And, that was my main focus. The title was actually SEO engineer. And I remember my cousin hated the word engineer because he said, "You're not an engineer. You're not an engineer. I'm an engineer." He's like a he's a proper engineer. Like,
Right, right.
in
Yeah,
aerospace.
civil or something like that, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But I'm apparently SEO engineer, a weird title. Anyway, um, following from that, I then moved to a very popular high street footwear shop in the UK.
Hmm.
It's called Schuh. It's written in German, so SCHUH.
Hmm.
And it's a major high street footwear chain in the UK. And it's actually now owned by an American company, but it's still operating separately. And I was in charge of SEO for them, and they have like thousands of shoes
Wow.
on the site. And that was a very good experience. I was there for a few years, and you learn a lot about managing a huge e-commerce website, which has also over 100 stores across the UK. So
Hmm.
you manage that as well in terms of local search. And that was great. During that time, I always wanted to kind of experiment at home. So I've always experimented with having my own website and especially on WordPress. And WordPress became a bit of a hobby for me, bit of a
Mm.
addiction almost. And I just wanted to play around with it more. You break something and then you learn from it. That was a great experience for me. And that helped me over time to become more knowledgeable about it, which means that after I left that job and went to another job, and before I started my business, I became part of the WordPress community,
Right.
meaning that I just got involved with the local meetup and I helped organize the meetup. I helped volunteer at the what you call WordCamp, which is like a conference for WordPress users, but it's like a local run.
Yeah, you help admin that right now, don't you? Or you did?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm right now I'm currently the lead organizer of
Right.
WordCamp Edinburgh. But I didn't start like that. A few years
Sure.
ago, I volunteered at that one, and it just helped me to become more involved with the WordPress community. You contribute; it's voluntary,
Hmm.
and you just learn a lot from people who are smarter than you. That was essential for me to
Right.
be people who are smarter than me,
Yeah, you
and
strike me as a lifetime learner type, for
I
sure.
can't help it.
Yeah.
Yeah, addiction. I mean, if people can see in the video behind me are loads of books.
Right.
I just can't help but reading all the time or watching something. It's a bit of an addiction. I don't know why, and
It's a
I
good
think
addiction to have.
it is a good addiction. I mean, I always believe in motto of always be learning.
Yeah. Can I go back a little bit? I'm curious about the sports management. What got you intrigued in that? I guess like sports as a young man, or
I was, yeah. I mean, I was always a sports enthusiast. I'm still I'm in a sense, and I've always been fascinated by the sports industry.
hmm.
And I've always had a soft spot for marketing. Marketing was always a favorite aspect of
Okay.
business for me.
So that's what got you into the masters for marketing, because that was where I was going next.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I did massive. It's actually international marketing management, but still, the idea was to combine the two together and do sports marketing, which is an industry that I love and an aspect of the business that I love, and combine it together.
Gotcha.
And that was the idea behind it. So
How
it
cool.
just this all accumulated to something, and then obviously now the past 3 years I've been running my WordPress SEO business,
Right.
and that's what I do right now. And I absolutely love what I do, and I continue contributing to WordPress. I continue doing what I'm doing in SEO, and even you probably know yourself. There's even a side hustle, if you like, call it that. Is that I'm also kind of a deaf advocacy kind of person because
Yes, I do want to. I did. Thank you for bringing that up. I do want to touch
yeah,
on that too, for sure. Um,
so, yeah.
so I. So let's talk for a second about sort of your entrepreneurial journey. So it sounds like some corporate jobs, and you're moving along. You're doing different roles, and probably learning lots of great things, and lifetime learner, and all this. And so uh, the audience loves the story about sort of that moment. And I find that most entrepreneurs. So maybe I should phrase it in a question. Did your interest in being an entrepreneur, was it something you knew early on you wanted to do? Did it build to a point, or was it a quick kind of thing? Was it like, okay, that's it, I've had it, I'm going to do this for myself? Tell me a little bit about sort of how you came to this decision to do it for yourself.
Sure. I can definitely say to you that when I started my career, I had no interest and no intention of starting my own business and running my
Interesting.
own business.
Interesting.
That was never my intention. It wasn't even in the back of my mind at all. It just wasn't even thinking about it. And it's the good thing is, this is why I always encourage people to get jobs anyway, because you learn so much from it. And I get very annoyed when people say, "Oh, I don't want to get a job," and they say it in a very derogatory way. They say it in a way that, "Oh no, I just want to work for myself so that I can do what I want to do."
Right.
But
You
I
sit around
look
and
at
eat
it,
bonbons all day long.
right?
That's not how it works, folks.
Oh, I can break it to you right now. It's definitely not how it works. Unbelievable. Let that be a shocker to you. I hope that happened to you. Like, oh my God, he's so right.
Yeah, it's so true.
But it's
So
so
you,
true.
I mean, you literally had no plans to do this. So what was it that got you to like, okay, I think I am going to do this?
There was a point, I think, in the last couple of jobs, and I maybe my second last job, where I was a bit not just confused, but I had a bit more urge to do a bit more, and I felt like sometimes there were red tapes in front of me where I couldn't do what I want to do, or I wasn't allowed to, or because there were certain restrictions, not through anybody's fault. It's just the way it is. I wanted
Right.
to do more. I wanted to push it, and I wanted to have that freedom to be creative. And I couldn't do that. And I got really, really frustrated. So after that job, I thought, you know what, maybe it's a job. So I moved to another job, and it wasn't a job. It's just the way I am right now. I felt like, you know what, I feel like I can do this better in my own way. And I feel like I can help certain people in a certain way. And I feel like I can make a difference. And it just happened like that. It was a slow burner. So it definitely wasn't something
Okay.
in a flash moment. I still did my learning, reading, and all these kind of things, and still build up my experience. And I highly value that. I'm so grateful for all the jobs that I had. Some were terrible, some were great, but it makes you who you are today.
That's such a great message for people to hear.
So
Because
I'm so
we have a
grateful.
tendency to talk bad about jobs. It's really the truth. But people
Definitely.
always think the grass is greener and I hate this job and it's going to be better when I go somewhere else. And a lot of times it's not the job, it's the person and their attitude and mentality. So, so you now you said it was a slow burn, but do you remember the day you kind of made that decision? Here I go. I mean, I'm gonna go.
I think it's too difficult to pinpoint, because I think it's one of them things where it's like incremental, like maybe
Mm.
1% increase every day. If you like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't see that, you don't feel that at all. So I cannot for the life of me think about when did it happen.
When
But I was trying to figure out myself when did it happen, and I couldn't. I just couldn't.
you're looking back going, how did I make this decision? Were you doing side hustles on the side in terms of taking on clients and doing some projects on the side, or did you literally just go from straight from corporate to your own business?
My side hustle wasn't exactly trying to start a business as such.
I see.
There were two things that I did. Was one was when I go home from work, I still had the urge to experiment and play
Got
around with read, learn. And the other thing, which also helped to play a part actually, was being part of the WordPress meetup and local community in Edinburgh.
it. Mm.
And that played a big part, because it allowed me to just naturally build your network. And when I originally joined, I didn't go there to kind of build up my client base so that I can jump on board and start my business. It's just there to meet more people, to learn from them, to share what you know. And that gradually and naturally built relationship. And that was my main intention. Was when I went there, I didn't want to go there with the intention of selling. And there came a point where I felt like I built up really good relationship with certain people in and around the WordPress community, because there are like business communities and other things as well, the online community. But it came a point where I felt like, they started to gradually ask me for help. And that was because of a relationship that we built. I helped them a little bit. And it came a point where I thought, you know what? It feels like I am in a demand before I even quit that job. And I think
Right.
I'm not the kind of person who is willing to, quit everything, sell my house, and jump in.
Right.
I can't do that. I did it again in a slow burner way, and I just was patient. Being patient is something that people don't really value enough. They just think it's going to be instant success, throw your business cards, and I'm going to get business. And it wasn't like that for me. It was a slow burner, as I said.
And so those people are coming to you asking for help around things, and you've got more skill sets than just SEO and just WordPress. So is that what led to sort of picking that model, as people were asking about those things specifically, or how did you decide what your services were going to be?
I focus on my strengths, and I think
Uh,
again is where I value my job and what I've learned from people in different office environment and the conferences that you go to. You know, they all played a part. So I get focused on the two things that I know that I am good at and I'm strong at, which is WordPress and SEO. And that's why I decided to focus on WordPress SEO. You know, I'm part of that community. I organize the meetup. I contribute there a lot, and I've been building up my SEO knowledge with many people doing various projects for big and small companies. And I built up that skill, and that was the intention. And again, you know, there are people out there who can jump from, let's just say, for example, a lawyer wants to be a chef. You know, there are people out there who jump from one industry to another. For me, it's not that I didn't feel comfortable with that. It just felt like I feel like I've got something that is useful for other people, and I use that to my strength.
no, it makes perfect sense, and it's great that you recognize that. A lot of people don't, right? I mean, a lot of people sort of they go into things that they think are attractive, but they don't have the strength around it. I've done that in the past myself, and so I think it's a great question. Might be asking yourself, what am I world class at, or what can I be world class at that other people may not be, not as many people may be able to, and that's a great place to go. And so,
Totally.
very cool. Well, maybe we could talk a little bit about sort of what you've learned over all these years with SEO and WordPress and best practices. I mentioned before we started that a lot of the folks that listen to the show are somewhat new in entrepreneurship, and doing these type things, especially from an SEO standpoint, can really benefit them. So what sort of things spring to mind when someone's starting out in a business from an SEO WordPress perspective that you think are best practices to pay attention to?
The most common, not most, but maybe one of the most common, in my opinion, I think it's a mistake, is that people tend to focus only on third-party platforms.
Oh,
And my problem with that is that you don't own anything. You don't have any control over
I
it.
see. So you're
So
thinking of like the mediums of the world and other places where they post content. They're so busy focused on Facebook, Instagram, Medium, all these other places putting that content out.
pretty much everything that you said and
Okay.
beyond.
Okay.
It's not just the blogging platform, even social media as well.
Okay.
My strong belief is that your website it should be the hub of everything. Now, I'm not
Right.
saying don't do any social media and don't do any YouTube and all these things, all these third-party platforms. I'm not saying you don't do that, but just be aware that if that's all you're focusing on, you are in their backyard and they can do whatever they want in their backyard. And my idea that, if you have your own website and that is a hub, then all the third-party platforms should support the website.
Great point.
And that is something that I try to instill in a lot of people, because it's so easy to create your own Facebook page and make that the focus of everything. And I still see that every day.
Why do
You
you
know,
think that is? I mean, do people just see that as, is it easier? Is it because those platforms seem to be pulling people there? I mean, I've heard this, so I just want to get your thoughts on it. I know of a pretty big company here in Tennessee where I live in the States, and they don't even have a blog. They just use Medium as that blog. I heard from them, they're like, well, Medium does a better job of pulling eyes than we do, which is kind of sad. But is that along the lines of what you're hearing too? The reason people do these things because these platforms seem to pull more eyes, and it's just too easy. But that's
it's
lazy.
true.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think I can understand from that perspective, because if you think about it, if you're using Facebook or if you're using Medium, or if you think about it this way, if you are selling on Amazon and selling on eBay, the eyeballs are there and ready and waiting for you. Maybe you're going to have more competition because you still
that's
have
there you
to
go.
attract people. You're still going to have competition, but you will have more eyeballs. And if everyone is on Facebook, then it makes sense to go there. And again, I approve of it. You can be on Facebook and have that as part of your business model, but I really don't think it's a good idea to make it your only focus, because you are at risk at what they're going to do. They can easily get turn it off, switch it off, and that's it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's this whole rented ground mentality, right? I mean, you're sort of borrowing that ground that they're on, and if for some reason they don't like what you're doing, I guess they just shut you off, and there you are, and you haven't built your own platform at all.
True, it's true. I mean, we've heard stories where innocent businesses, for some reason, they've had their Facebook page turned off or whatever, just because of a mistake, just because of, it had been reported that this post was not appropriate, and they had to stop that page or something like that. And it was a mistake, and then got it back up. But here's the point: it's just you don't have a control.
Right, it's just gone.
To go back to what you're saying, like why that is, well, it is easier, isn't it? It is easier to create your own Facebook page and Medium account than to set up a website. There are obviously easy ways to set up your website, and we can discuss that. But I think the fact that it's so easy and you have eyeballs almost immediately, then it's natural to understand why it's appealing for these small businesses. And of course, it's free.
Right.
Which is a great, for anybody who's starting a business, the cheaper it is, or if it's free, then more attractive.
Well, maybe we could talk about that for a second. I mean, because I don't have anywhere near the skill you do, but I host my own WordPress sites, and I've built out all my own. I know I haven't done as good a job in SEO as you could, but I guess, but WordPress is pretty inexpensive to buy a theme and drag and drop something in. And so there are ways to do it. I always tell people, if it's not something you're good at, don't do it yourself. I'm curious your thoughts on SEO for newer companies. Because in an example, I'm sort of putting you on the spot here, so I'll apologize up front. But an example is, if you're trying to, be involved in lending, like I'm a lender, right? Used to be a C-level bank executive. If you're trying to be involved in lending, there's keywords like small business lending that are highly competitive. Any thoughts spring to mind on best practices around competing from an SEO standpoint as a new company for these larger keywords? Anything that you could share with the audience that might be a best practice there?
The one thing that people always find appealing is that when they do a very basic keyword research, and I think everyone should always do keyword research, not just to understand the search volume per month and understand which is popular and which is not popular, but also to understand the language that people use, how they write, how they search. Because people always assume like, okay, this has a high search volume, but then maybe there's another keyword which is actually more valuable, but it has less search volume. So a good example that I would like to say is, if you are, let's just say, I'm going to pick a random example. If you are a camera brand and you're selling cameras on your website,
right?
Most people would assume that, I want to rank for the generic key terms which have huge search volume. Like, for example, Nikon.
Right.
Nikon is a big name, it's a big brand, and you think, I want to rank for that. For me, I would say you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, if someone's searching for Nikon, most likely they just want to go to nikon.com or whatever it is. So maybe you should refine it further and be a bit more specific. So maybe instead of Nikon, that person will then say, okay, you know what? I want to search for, I want to rank well for Nikon digital camera or Nikon SLR. Okay, it's getting more specific, but it's still really competitive. I mean, a lot of people are
still searching for that. Yeah.
Searching for that Nikon digital camera. It's still very, very competitive. And also, if you think about it, if people are searching for that, they're still in the very early stages of buying.
I love this. Yeah.
Know what you're looking for yet. So, okay, but then what if you get really specific and if they rank well for Nikon digital camera and then a model name? So, for example, a model name would be the D3200.
Yes.
That's the model name. Now, that's obviously going to be less search volume. It's going to be very small, probably. But if you think about, first of all, whoever is searching for that, more often than not, they know exactly what they want. They want that camera.
Mm-hmm.
And it may have less search volume, but the value of that is much, much higher.
So it's sort of a matter of weighing out the search volume itself with how competitive that keyword may be. And I loved your comment about the stage of buying that they're at also. That's something a lot of folks just I don't think they think about when they're
Well,
planning out their SEO.
it's true. I mean, you're right that the search volume and competitiveness, both valid metrics to look at, but then people don't think enough about the search intent of the person who's searching.
Okay, talk a little more about that search intent.
Well, it's like you just think about it, imagine you are the customer and you're typing those keywords onto Google or whatever it is. What are they really looking for?
Mm.
So again, I'm going to use the camera as example. If they're searching for Nikon, then maybe they just want to look at the brand. Maybe they want to learn about the company. Maybe they are at the very, very buying stage of the camera buying experience, but they like Nikon.
Mm.
But then if they search for, maybe Nikon SLR or Nikon, maybe a pocket camera, two very, very different things. And you get an idea of what they're looking for.
Gotcha.
And then if you go further down the funnel, if you like, and they are searching for a specific type of camera, the model name, then you know what is their intent, which is to learn more about that particular model, the
Right.
prices, the description, the features, all these things, reviews, videos, how does it work? Then you get a better idea of if a person is sitting down on the computer and searching for that, then you know what they're looking for. And that's why I think it's important to think about search intent and not just think about ranking number one for the sake of ranking number one.
Awesome. That's really great advice. Are there particular tools you like to do your research on these things?
My current favorite is called KW Finder or Keyword Finder.
Oh, yes.
It's one of my favorite current tools right now. I kind of got not just bored, but also a bit annoyed with Google's keyword tool planner. It got a bit messy. It got, it's very cumbersome to use. I don't really like the user experience of it. It's useful for certain things. It does give you decent data, but in terms of getting the information and ease of experience and just, even support as well, I'm a big fan of KW Finder, and they also have other tools around that
Is
as well.
that because I think I use it myself, is that the one that's also in a plugin form? And so as you're searching through just whatever, it'll spit out search word volumes on the side of the page. Is that the same?
You're thinking of an extension called Keywords Everywhere.
Yes, I am. Sorry. So what is it you like about Keyword Finder? What?
It's very, very easy to use, and I think they are able to connect things in a different way in one screen. So, for example, you put in your keyword, that generic one if you like, and then your location as well if you want to, and you click on search. Not only you're going to get a list of related ideas, but it's easy to filter it. You are able to immediately look at who is ranking top 10 for it. You're easily able to look at the trend of that keyword over the past 12 months.
Okay.
And then you can dig deeper and deeper about the metrics of each website, of each specific keyword. You can then look at the related keyword of the keyword that you picked. And they make it very, very easy and almost everything in one screen as well. And it's great. It's a really, really good tool to use.
So I feel like what I'm hearing is, a fair amount of research. I think we might be able to pull all that together and just say that people need to be researching these things before they make assumptions instead of just looking at volume and then maybe one other metric. It sounds like you're saying from a best practice standpoint is to really dig into these keywords, looking at alternates and trends and all these different facets of what's going on. And I love your comment about the sort of the intent along the way.
Of course. I mean, I think people get too hung up on the numbers sometimes. It's a valid thing. I mean, I think it's a good thing to look at. But again, think about one thing is the intent, but also even if you just go directly onto Google and start typing, but don't press the return key.
Right.
Look at the auto suggest, and look at that. And if you combine that with keywords everywhere, then you're going to get numbers alongside it as well. And I always encourage people, for example, if you are struggling for ideas, then just start typing onto Google and look at the auto suggest that come down. Look at the result page. Look at the first page of Google and look at these individual pages that are ranking. How are they doing it? And even if you go back to the search result, even go to the bottom of Google search result and look at the related keywords at the bottom. That's also there for a reason, and there because people search for it.
Right. It's like it's
And
hidden gold that people are passing over and not even, they're
you don't
just
think about it.
recognize it's there. Yeah, great
No,
point. You don't even think about it. It's just like, oh, well, I'm just going to search for the.
we get so used to it that it's there all the time. It's become like part of the decoration, you know.
Great point. Yeah. Yeah, it has. Well,
So it's just it's a very very useful thing to look at directly onto Google. If you can't afford to buy these tools, you
mm,
can Google to give you ideas, and you can
right,
combine that with Keywords Everywhere, which is a free tool. Put that in your Chrome or Firefox, and I think other browsers as well. And you
right.
can get the numbers directly on Google itself as well. So you don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars every year if you know are struggling to do that. A few tweaks here and there, a few free tools, and you are on a great start to get you the keyword that you're looking for.
Very cool. Well, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the advocacy work that we alluded to earlier on. So if it's okay, could you share kind of what you're doing there?
Surely, I mean, one thing that is not obvious to people when they look at me is that I am, some people call me deaf. I am deaf, or maybe hard of hearing. Either way, it's fine with me, and it's something that I've been born with and lived with my entire life. And I've had my fair share of challenges along the way, and
Mm.
you kind of adapt to it. And before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm sure people are thinking, how are we having a conversation if I'm deaf? Well, I mean, first of
Sure.
all, I'm not profoundly deaf. I can still hear certain things.
Right.
That's number one. And number two, what makes it easier for me is, from your end, Jonathan, is that you're in a quiet environment, we're having a video call, and the audio quality is very, very good because you have the right microphone and setup and stuff like that.
Ah,
So
okay.
if it was a noisy environment and I can't see you, and if you were mumbling or all these kind of things, then I would not even bother trying to have a conversation with you.
Should be tough. Yeah. And my Southern slang can mess the whole thing up on top of that.
I mean, you think that. What about my Scottish accent? I mean, it's
Right, right. Sure.
not just Scottish, my Scottish, Irish, English, it's just everywhere.
All of it
All of it
combined.
combined, man. All of it combined. So that's why I can have these conversations, because technology has enabled me to do that. But I've had challenges in school, in university, in jobs, and even my most recent issue right now is I can't go to cinemas anymore. Now
Ah,
you think, yeah, the volume is high, it should be fine, it should be clear, but it's not for me. It's very very
is it too
difficult to.
much maybe? Is it just
It's it's not about the volume.
okay.
Volume does not make things easier for a person like me and
Right.
everyone. It's about the clarity. And the problem is, for example, and I'm going to use the most simplest example is any superhero, Marvel, DC
Yeah,
comics.
didn't you just write about this actually
I
on
did,
your
yes.
blog? Yeah,
I've done a
talk
couple
about
of
that.
videos and a podcast about it as well.
Okay.
My problem, first of all, is I depend a lot on a combination of captions, and I do like to lip read as well. So again, I'm looking at you. I can do that
Right.
with you.
Right.
And but the problem is, when people say, "Can you not caption? Can you not lip read Superman?" Well, I said to them, "Well, if you think about it, he's wearing a mask. So
Yeah.
how can you caption? How can you lip read Iron Man and Spider Man? And how can you lip read them? They're wearing a mask. You
Right.
know, people forget about that. And another example is, we're now in the middle of people talking about Avengers Endgame, and that was what I was talking about. I was talking about how I struggled with the last Avengers because the character Thanos, I couldn't comprehend what he's saying.
Uh,
And because of that, the entire movie, I didn't know what's the storyline. And I got really frustrated. I got really
I'm
angry.
sure.
I got really tired because there is a thing called concentration fatigue.
Of course. In a
And that
long
is
movie
when
like
you
that.
focus in really, really hard and your brain is working extra hard to just listen extra hard, and you're focusing and you're just trying to really, really squeeze as much energy as possible to work out what that person is saying.
Yeah, and then I mean, I'm assuming that at the same time you're doing that, you're probably also missing some of the things that are happening on the side of the screen, and just because you're so focused on this person, what they might be saying.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
I actually will keep captions on when I do certain things. I don't know why. Some maybe when I run on the treadmill or something, and you just can't hear it very well. So and I find myself staring at the captions, and I remind myself, well, then you're not seeing anything. It's happening. It's like reading a book, right? So I can see how that'd be really, really, really frustrating.
It is. Yeah, it's something that I'm trying to kind of be a bit more vocal about it, because I used to be very private about it, but now it got to a point where I felt like I'm done with this. I need to do something about it.
Right.
And I'm lucky that my advantage is that I know how to put together a website. I know how to, do these content and podcasting and videos. I can do that. That's because I've been doing it for a long time, so I can use that to my advantage. So, that's why now I've got conferences that I'm going to, that I'm talking about the benefit of using captions in your videos. And you don't have to be deaf to benefit from that. You just talked about yourself, that you said you
Yeah.
have it on when you're watching in the gym.
Yeah.
And there's a metric I've read, it said apparently approximately 85% of the videos watched on Facebook are watched in silence. And if you think about it, that makes sense. That person might be traveling, might be in the gym,
Right.
might be in a noisy environment, so you can't hear it anyway. Maybe didn't have the headphones with them. It could be so many reasons. But if you have the captions on in your videos, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or whatever, evidence have shown that you will get more engagement. And that engagement could be anything from, likes and shares and stuff like that, to the view time. And that's an important metric in various algorithms for YouTube and Facebook. The view time is important.
Right. So I'm just curious, have you always done some advocacy around this, or is it just started really recently? I've noticed you talk about it a little bit more in our chat group. Is this more
I've
recent?
definitely, yeah, no, you're right, because I have been very private about it for a long time, but I've been more vocal about it maybe the past 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And there were certain trigger moments in my life which made me realize, you know what, I need to do something about it. And part of that trigger was the opportunity to meet Pat Flynn.
Oh, okay. Yeah. A smart passive income. Okay.
Smart passive income. And the long story short is that he was talking about his book called Let Go. And it's about, it is what it is. You let go of something that is holding you back, so it allows you to move forward. And he was encouraging his community to do it's like a 3-minute video about the moment that you have let go. Now, I didn't know about this until like the day before deadline. And I'm like, oh God, my wife pushed me. She said, you got to do it. You got to do it. I'm like, oh no. And I got my phone out, and I don't have a camera. So obviously you use the phone. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? So I recorded a video. And this is also my very first YouTube video ever.
Oh.
And I put it on YouTube. And I thought, you know what? If the worst comes to the worst, is that number one, I have managed to let go. So it allowed me to move forward. And number two, it forced me to create my first video. So before anyone gets excited about videos, I can promise you that your first video will be terrible. Awful. I mean, I'm evidence of that, and many people are evidence of that. And I'm looking at my video right now, my first one. I'm like, damn, what happened there? Anyway.
I'm going to have to link to it now.
You know what? I don't care. I got the opportunity eventually to meet Pat Flynn, and he picked one of my video, and he flew me over to San Diego. And bear in mind, I'm living in Scotland. He flew me over, and got to spend a day with him.
How cool!
It's a privilege, because I know he's not going to do that for everyone. It's a very rare thing. And I got the opportunity to spend literally a whole day with him, and we had fun. We talked business. We were playing arcade games. We went there for tacos. I've obviously recorded it on YouTube as well.
Man, what a dream!
It's amazing, and that helped me to let go of that fear. And then other aspect of letting go was, my wife allowed me to be more comfortable with myself. That's another part of it.
Of course.
And then those moments like the cinema experience where I've opened up about the last Avengers. I struggled so much that at the end of it, and when we left the cinema, I started to cry, because I just got really tired and exhausted, and I'm fed up. And that's another trigger moment. So it's just literally the past maybe 3 years, 2-3 years, when I really became vocal about it. Yeah, I've been living with it for over 30 years.
Yeah. Well, listen, hey, thanks so much for being willing to share that. We will be sure to link to some of those things so that folks can check it out. It's great work you do. Thanks for taking the time to share tips with us on SEO. If people want to learn more about what you do, where's the best place to connect with you?
I'm lucky that I'm being consistent. Social media, I'm mostly active on Twitter. I have it as well other places. You just go to I am Ahmed Khalifa.
Right.
That is my handle on many places. And the website is IamAhmedKhalifa.com. So I am AhmedKhalifa.com. It's not a simple name like John Smith, but you know what? I'm going to live with it.
I think it's perfect. I think it's absolutely perfect, man. Like I said, thanks so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate your time.
No problem at all. Happy to do it. And thanks again for inviting me.
My pleasure.